Welcome back to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft podcast. My name is Chris Speir, and I'm going to be your guide to enjoying the great outdoors. Today is all about knives. Everybody loves a good pocket knife. Everybody loves a good folding knife or a belt knife, a sheath knife, or whatever. Everybody likes knives, and I get it because knives are the number one tool next to a metal pot that you'll take with you into the woods. I have my More Knife Garberg and my BPS Bushcraft 2, and I use those two knives interchangeably, and they are great at doing specific tasks that I need them to do, like cutting down trees, cutting down saplings, splitting firewood, carving, cleaning game, cutting up fish, stuff like that. These knives work great at doing the task at hand that I need them to do. But the single most important tool you could take with you into the woods, aside from a metal container, is a good quality sheath or belt knife. And perhaps the second most important tool that you can pack is a backup knife. It's happened to me before. Now, using a stainless steel knife, and I was trying to split a sapling. I was cutting a sapling, and I set the knife up there, and I was using a baton, and I was trying to beaver chew it around type deal, and the stainless steel blade warped. And you've probably seen this on some of your cheaper stainless steel blades on cheaper knives, that they do bend, they do warp, and it's easy for them to warp. But this happened to me, and that's what got me looking into the different variations of steel, the different variations of knives. So the types of steel that you got to choose from. Now, there's others, but for the sake of simplicity, whenever I was researching the book and doing everything for this book, that I narrowed it down to stainless steel and high carbon steel. And so, without turning it into a chemistry class, all steel has some degree of carbon in the makeup, and what that does is it just makes the steel stronger. But the main difference is stainless steel is more malleable and less brittle than carbon steel. Stainless steel has a metallic element added to it called chromium, and it gives it its anti-corrosive and tarnish-resistant finish, and that results in a highly polished shine. Now, high carbon steel knives are more rigid and robust, but more brittle and prone to chipping and cracking, especially in colder weather. And they're also more robust or more rust prone and do not hold an edge as long as stainless steel knives. And so this is true. I've had people that argue with me, and they keep saying that, no, you're backwards, dude. You're backwards. Like the stainless steel will chip and crack, and the high carbon steel will warp. And I'm like, I've never had that. I've never had that happen to me. I've had the stainless steel warp and bend, but I've had the carbon steel chip, crack, and break, and especially whenever you're prying and you're using it to pry. So those two, there's differences there, especially if you're using a ferro rod. And I don't know why, but a ferro rod with a high carbon steel knife is going to throw massive sparks off there. Now, you'll get sparks with a stainless steel knife, but it just won't be as abundant as the carbon steel. So, but, high carbon steel is superior at starting fires with a ferro rod and is less prone to blade warping. And high carbon steel, it's true, it will rust a lot easier than your stainless steel knives, but there's some kind of trade-off there. Some people love their stainless, some people don't. Some people love the carbon, high carbon, some people don't. So let's move on now. We're going to go to the tang of a knife. What is a tang? So your knife will go through tons of abuse while you're out camping, while you're out in the woods, you're practicing your bushcraft, you're practicing survival skills, primitive camping. So when making a selection, you want to consider the tang of your knife. The tang is the part of the knife blade that extends into the handle. So you've seen it. You've seen where you look down the spine of your knife and you can see that knife blade going all the way in through the end of the handle of the knife. And it's the same width or thickness as the rest of the knife blade. And that is a full tang knife. Now, your partial tangs have the handles that are made around it. A good example of this would be the Morinov Companion HD. Those are the companions are partial tang knives. The tang doesn't go all the way through. Now the Garberg is a full tang knife. It goes all the way through the handle. So the tang is the part of the knife blade that extends into the handle. There's wide varieties of knife tangs, but we're going to concentrate on just two of the most common types, and that's the full tang and the partial tang. Now, a partial tang does not run all the way through the handle, which makes the knife comparatively weaker to the full tang, and it's subject to breakage. It's more subject to being able to break, especially when you're using your knife to split firewood or other demanding tasks like prying and stuff like that. But they tend to be less expensive than full tang knives. So I use the Morinov Garberg and the Morinov Companion, and I'll use the Garberg as my main knife, the Companion as my backup knife, and that way I have two. Now, I'll use one for splitting wood. I'll use one for, cutting fish or game. The Companion the blade's a little thinner, and so therefore it will it cleans fish a lot easier than, let's say, the Garberg does. The Garberg has a real thick blade, and it is better at splitting firewood or cutting down saplings and stuff like that. Now, another aspect to consider is going to be the grind of your knife. This is one aspect where you've got so many different grinds for a knife. It's crazy that some people will argue all day what grind is more superior, and so we're going to keep it very simple. All right. So the grind is another important consideration when choosing your knife. It is the type of grind refers to how the knife's blade edge is ground down to make a razor sharp edge for cutting. Now, that I'm reading word for word out of this book, and so many people tend to only consider the tang and overlook the grind. So whenever people selecting their knives, they don't even consider whether it's carbon steel or stainless steel. But then they look into the kind of materials it is, but then they look into the full tang or partial tang, and then they just select their knife. But each grind has a specific task that is done. So we're going to look at 4 grinds most often used with primitive camping and bushcraft: the Scandinavian or Scandi grind, the flat grind, and those are the 2 most common grinds that are used for bushcrafting and primitive camping. A hollow grind offers a sharp and precise cut, ideal for delicate tasks such as like skinning animals or like cleaning fish and stuff like that. But it's real easily susceptible to damage with heavy use. And let's see, conversely, with its outwardly curved blade edge formed by continuous tapering, a convex grind provides a robust and durable edge suitable for demanding tasks. So, still, it may lack the precision and sharpness of other grinds. Now, the hollow grind and the convex grind can be challenging to sharpen in the field, and they require more skill to maintain the correct angle during your sharpening. So, but the Scandinavian grind and the flat grind are, like I said, they're the most common grinds that you're going to find on a knife. And these things right here are the easiest way to sharpen in the field. And the Scandi grind, the flat grind are the easiest to sharpen. A hollow grind, a lot of times, with the hollow grind and the convex grind, they're a lot more difficult to sharpen. So now we're going to move on to the spine. Another aspect of your knife selection is to ensure that your knife has a sharp 90-degree spine. A lot of the knives, many of these flashy knives that are survival knives or bushcraft knives or whatever are, they have all these ridges now, and then they're coated in this powder and, powder coated and stuff like that. And, it is designed to prevent rusting. And if you took care of your knife's not going to rust anyway. And number two, if you need to start a fire, it's going to make it harder to start a fire with your knife and your ferro rod, all these coatings and stuff. Now, these little stylistic ridges that they got on the top are like for thumbs, and you can hold your thumb grip and stuff like that, but it prevents you from starting a fire with your knife with a ferro rod. Now, many high carbon steel knives now come with a powder coating to prevent rusting, but you do not need a powder coating on your knife. All you need is just simply clean it, wipe it, and if you have to, add a little bit of oil to the knife. Even when you're out in the woods, you can add a little bit of oil to your knife, some grease or something like that. And maintaining your knife in the field is easy, just to keep it from rusting. Just keep it dry and apply a small amount of oil. That's it. That's all you got to do. Daily use. And I don't understand why people have to have these powder coatings other than it looks cool. It makes the whole knife like one solid color, like black. And I've seen them now where they're like all powder blue or red or, green or, whatever. I just like a regular knife blade, Now, sharpening your knife is... When it comes to knife sharpening, there are so many different options, including stones, diamond plates, ceramic sharpeners, leather belts. And so people argue with me about that. A strop or a leather belt is technically not sharpening your knife. I get it. I understand that. But what it does is it realigns those burrs and it makes your knife seem sharper. And so when you're actually out in the field, if you have a leather belt on, every time you use your knife, if you stroke it on the leather, it will stay sharper longer. And that's just a proven fact. It works for me. But people, I've posted a video on all my social media platforms. It got hundreds of thousands of views, and people will argue with me that, that's not what it's doing. That's, I'm like, come on, man. It's whatever it is, what it is. But stropping a knife is involves running a blade along a leather strap, a belt or, some kind of, it's a reverse cutting motion, backwards. And this process polishes the edges and it removes the burrs and refines the sharpness, resulting in a smoother, more efficient cut and prolonged sharpness. So a sharp stone from a creek or a stream, a smooth stone, not sharp, a smooth stone from a creek or stream can, sure enough, sharpen a knife. And, one of the most recent things I've seen is somebody, I think it was Zach Fowler, Fowler's Makery of Mischief, where he demonstrated how he kept his knife sharp on the Alone show. He cut a log and he stood that log up and then he wiped clay or sand on top of that log. And he used that to go back and forth to keep his knife razor sharp the whole time. And I have since seen several people do that. I don't know if they're copying him or what, but I'd never seen that method before. Alan Kay, he used a stone. He used a stone out of the creek, and he did his. He was the season 1 winner of Alone. But, you know, there's a million different ways to sharpen your knife while you're out into the woods. So, now, length of your knife. The ideal length of your knife depends on your intended use, and it intends on you. It depends on you. It depends on what you want, what you need it for, how you're going to use it. A knife is going to be, it's best if it's between the blade, not the handle, but the blade is between 4 and 5 inches. So that's going to make your knife 9 to 10 inches long, depending on your handle size. You know, a 4 to 5 inch knife is the perfect length for a primitive camping or bushcraft knife. And it allows you to process firewood. It allows you to chop down saplings. It allows you to do carving. It allows you to process your game. It allows you to do, you know, clean fish, stuff like that. And your blades should be relatively thick. And a lot of them now, I've seen them all the way up to a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch thick. And I'm like, dude, what's that? That's overkill, you know? But, you know, 3/32 and 3/16 of an inch, that is usually pretty good, perfect, thick blades for a knife. Now, the thicker the blade, the more abuse it will be able to withstand, especially when you're splitting firewood or you're cutting down saplings, you know, stuff like that. Some bushcrafters and survivalists will frown upon using your knife to split firewood, but, you know, if you're in a situation, it's going to be the best and only option that you have. And it depends on the situation that you're in. If you're going out there for a couple of days, split your firewood. I typically do not split a lot of firewood when I'm camping. I don't think a lot of it's necessary. And I mean, I do, to start it off, I'll split small amounts, but once the fire gets big enough and has enough coals and is hot enough, I'll just throw whole logs and limbs on there. I typically don't cut them down. I conserve my energy. I will take a very long limb, and I'll throw it on the fire and burn it in half, and then I'll throw it on the fire again, burn those in half, and then throw it on fire and save my energy there. A lot of people are like, oh, you're just lazy. No, I'm not lazy. I'm just, I'm not going to sit there and waste my time and wear myself out splitting a log or with a saw or cutting a log with an axe or whatever. So I carry my primary knife everywhere I go, which is my Garberg and my Moore knife Garberg. And then sometimes I use my BPS Bushcraft. And I have a backup knife, which is my Moore knife Companion HD. Now, these knives are great, but the Garberg and the Bushcraft are the ones that I use the most to split firewood. They got the thickest blade. And their blades are also they're perfect for splitting logs, and they're perfect for going ahead and batoning stuff, or, you know, carving things or whatever. I mean, it's perfect for what I do whenever I'm in the woods. So, all right. Well, that was a real quick down and dirty episode on selecting a knife. And if you got any questions, go ahead and shoot me questions. You know, this podcast is actually going to be a video on YouTube. You go over to YouTube, throw in the comments if you got any questions, and go ahead and whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, just go ahead and hit that like button, that follow button, and let me know what you think. Leave a review. Let me know what you think about the way it's going. This is all new to me, and I'm making it up as I go, I guess. So I need your help in deciding the future of this program. So I hope you enjoyed this today. A real quick, down and dirty, how to select a knife. And don't forget, everything that we discuss here is going to be included in the book Primitive Camping and Bushcraft, which that is what this entire podcast is based off of, is this book, Primitive Camping and Bushcraft. Now, I'll see you next time in the next video or podcast. God bless you.